I gave myself 1 week to learn how to game dev and make a working game. And I have 0 game dev knowledge and 0 programming knowledge. What a freaking great idea. But you, my friend, you're coming with me on this bumpy ride. Game dev is hard, and like most things in life, it requires discipline, commitment, time.
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm an impatient person, so I want to become a game dev and unleash my insanity in forms of video games in less than a week. And this is how I did it. First off, I had to define what I wanted out of this journey. What kind of game and set of skills did I want to learn in my very limited time? And my first decision was, the game has to be 3D because 2D sucks. 2D is for pussies. I want something fast-paced. I want to be able to implement as many game mechanics as I want so that I can use this first game as a playground for future ideas. A platformer was the ideal and obvious choice.
Wow, that's so not original.
So, now that I know what I want out of this week, time to make the most important decision of any aspiring game dev.
The game engine.
From the game dev YouTubers I've been watching, like Danny,
it's just a little game I'm working on. I just can't leave it 20 of those.
Jonas,
You will die! You will...
and Sebastian Lague. This guy here. I know that a popular choice is Unity. Unity also seems like it's the game engine with the most guides to it, so it would only make sense that I also choose Unity.
Do I look like someone that does the same shit as everyone else? No. Fuck no. I will choose the one true gamer game engine. I will choose the Unreal fucking game engine.
Another reason why I'm choosing the Unreal Engine is that from what I've seen, the Unreal Engine is more heavily focused on 3D games, whereas Unity seems more versatile and less focused, and I'm all about 3D. 2D is for noobs. Now that I've chosen the glorious Unreal Engine, I can start learning how to actually make games. And just as you might expect, learning even just the basics of C++ programming and game development in 1 week is very probably quite impossible. So I had to find a way to create a game without using much code. Luckily, the glorious Unreal Engine has a way to make games that don't require any line of code. It's called visual scripting, and it basically simplifies programming to a certain degree. And to get my game dev journey started, this is just what I needed. To learn the basics, I used an amazing site called Skillshare, which does not sponsor this video yet. And on Skillshare, I searched for a tutorial, bumped up the speed and absorbed as much information as possible.
Nice.
I basically followed a guide on how to make a game about balls. I followed that tutorial almost completely and played around with some stuff. So, first day over, and I learned quite a bit. I learned how to attach the camera to my player. I learned how to make my player move around. And I learned how to add different forces to objects or even my player. Also created the first pickup items like these gems and hearts. And finally, I made a cactus that is supposed to deal damage and knock you back, but instead, well, he just sends you to another dimension.
Madness. This is
The Unreal Engine.
Today's the day where I discovered the bane of my existence. The UI system. I absolutely hate it. But anyways, I learned how to create a pause function with a pause menu. I also learned a way to implement checkpoints, a way to win the game and go to the next level, and I started to improve my player movement to make my player feel less floaty and more reactive. I did this by implementing different drag forces. I also tried to implement a blender model to my game, which went terribly wrong. Other than that, there's not that much to say about day 2. It was basically just refining the basics and learning some more stuff. Another day and another annoying UE part to implement. On day 3, I implemented the menu. But apart from fighting with my menu system, I also started to create some stuff by myself, without the need of tutorials. I created a jump function for my player movement. The only problem is, I didn't know how to limit the jumps, so the player can just spam jump and fly. So I kind of fixed this by creating a cooldown for the jump ability, so that the player is limited to only one jump every 0.3 seconds. However, this doesn't feel right. I want the player to only be able to jump if he touches the ground. But that's going to be a problem for tomorrow because I'm exhausted. Something I also started to do is I made a Trello list to help me keep track of the things I still need to do. This will be a great help in the future. Huge progress today. I learned very essential stuff. The main thing being line traces, which basically draws a line in a specific direction and checks if it collides with anything. This is how some shooter games make the guns hit you. If the line hits you, then you take damage. But why this is huge for me? Well, it fixes my jumping problem. Now I make the game draw a short line downwards from the player, and if the line hits the ground, then you can jump. And if it doesn't, then you can't jump. This makes jumping feel exactly how it should be. Apart from that, I also created a dash ability, which I think will add some interesting mechanics like jumping while dashing or dashing after a jump to give the player a big boost. Finally, I ended the day by learning a bit about terrain generation, which is used to make awesome looking open worlds. I loaded this pre-made awesome looking terrain and played around in it. It felt very satisfying seeing my ball with my physics and mechanics behave in this actual open world. It started to feel like an actual game. Today I had planned to start creating the levels, and I did for a little while until I had this great idea. With the new learn function line trace, I could make a grappling hook to give me the ability to swing around like Spider-Man, or in this case, Spider Ball. It can't be that hard, right? Well, it was hard. Do you know how many vectors and velocities I had to multiply and adapt every little single input of force just right so that it feels like you're swinging from an actual grapple? I'm bad at math. And no, not even the tutorials online were that much of help because somehow it just didn't work. You know how many times this grapple sent me to space or even another dimension because the forces were just going crazy? This is the first time in my entire life I actually regretted not having listened more carefully in math at school. After trying the whole freaking day, I finally achieved something good. But my whole day was gone, and I didn't achieve any of the goals I've set for myself at the beginning of the day, which, may I remind you, was actually starting to create levels. However, given the amount of stuff I learned today, I think it was well worth it. Okay. I have a little less than 2 days to complete my challenge. But the mechanics are in, the only thing that is left to do is actually build the levels. Should be easy, right? Well, wrong again. Designing a level is just as much work as the actual coding and such. How do you make a game fun? How do you give it the right amount of challenge, but also don't make it too frustrating? I quickly realized that making 3 levels in a 3D game was going to be quite the challenge. So I had to take this very hard decision. Instead of 3 levels, I was going to focus on 1 level that was going to be the tutorial area, where I let the player experience the base mechanics of the game and where he has to combine the different learned mechanics to finish the level. So I started building the level and I made a jumping part where the player had to use his jump ability. Then I made this trap thingy here that would force the player to use the dash ability. And to finish off the level, I had this idea of creating platforms or islands with no gravity that would force the player to use all the mechanics, meaning jump and dash, to finish off the level. But what I thought was going to be easy, again turned out to be quite hard, because after respawning, the platform would not reset but continue moving in whatever direction the player pushed them. And I just couldn't figure out how to reset their position. So I went to bed with that problem in mind. That night, I dreamed of my game. I dreamed of this incredible scene that would imitate that breathtaking scene in Inception where the world bends upside down. As I woke up on day 7, not only did I know how to fix my gravity islands, I also had a clear vision of what I wanted my level to look like. But first, the gravity islands. I just had to set it so that when the player touches the platform, a timer starts, and after a given time, the platform deletes itself and respawns at its initial location. And this worked just as I wanted it. Now the base level finished, I could work on implementing the details, such as lighting and all the scenery, and also implement this scene I dreamed of. So I spent the day tweaking on the things in-game, decorating my first level, and lastly I introduced a few collectibles hidden in the level. Finally, I have finished my first level. It's short, but it's well thought through and carefully designed. And the obvious way isn't the fastest. You can complete this level very quickly if you master the different skills and mechanics, giving the game a sort of speedrun aspect. So, have I succeeded my challenge or did I fail? For me, it's kind of both. I wouldn't call myself a game dev just yet. Most of my code was made with blueprints, and there's still a lot of stuff I need to learn before being able to make a fully fledged game. But if I look at my progress and what I learned in 1 week, I am exactly where I want to be.